What's the funniest name you've heard someone call an object when they couldn't remember its actual name? My little brother, who was around 6 at the time, really wanted popcorn, and he asked if he could have some of the Boom Puffs. At Target, I asked for a can of bug murder. I forgot insecticide or even bug spray. The dude took it in stride, didn't flinch. Ah, good morrow sir, a can of your finest invertebrate genocide if you please. My ex and I were hanging out one day trying to figure out what we wanted to do. I suggested maybe a walk in the park, a trip to the zoo, etc. When all of a sudden his face lit up and he gleefully asked what about the Aqua Museum. It took me a good few seconds to realize he meant the aquarium. Now I'm imagining a museum with tanks of water from different oceans, lakes and rivers. Friend is Norwegian. She couldn't remember the English word for monkey. Apparently the direct translation of monkey in Norwegian is ape cat. Lots of Scandinavian countries had hilarious drawings and books of creatures they had never seen but had heard about secondhand. Pre-pictures and printing era, of course. Alligators and lions were hilariously represented. To this day most of my family refers to a strainer colander as a noodle stay water go because my older brother called it that once when he couldn't find it and needed to ask where it was. I worked in kitchens for years, in Texas. I had a crew of hicks working for me and they referred to the strainer as the holy bowl. I still call it this. Stuck in traffic. So called to ask how it was. I said it was butter mouth over here. I couldn't remember the phrase bumper to bumper. I always refer to bad traffic jams as being nuts to butts, so you're almost in the same ballpark, I guess. A Polish exchange student was thirsty after a night out and didn't know what to say. He pointed to his mouth and said Sahara. A Mexican exchange student apologized for wearing pants, looking very embarrassed. He meant sweatpants, since they were too casual. I once had to listen to my mother tell a 10-minute story about all the honkers she saw at the park. Geese. She meant geese. Years ago my kid called geese geeks. Back in 90s I was 14 and begging my mom to let me go to a Guns N' Roses concert. I kept nagging until she got frustrated but couldn't remember the band name and said, "I'm not letting you go to any dang Death and Flowers concert." I couldn't stop laughing. Reminds me of my mum getting confused in the early 2000s and asking me if I wanted the new Linkin Biscuit album for my birthday. I know a German who learned English in Wales. It's the most amazing clusterfrick of accents. Anyway, a dog ran off with his gloves and he chased after it shouting, "Come back with my hand shoes." From what I've learned, the German word for glove is Handschuh, which is pronounced like handshoe. Makes sense to me. At one point I started googling map of the year because my brain short-circuited and I couldn't recall the word calendar. My friend couldn't remember the word cow for some reason, so she googled me beast to remember. I love that the word she used was beast, not animal, not creature, but beast. It makes it sound ominous. I once worked with a German guy who asked me what the English word for a snail without a house on his back. Took me a while to work out he meant a slug. German for slug translates to naked snail. And a snail shell is called a Schneckenhaus or snail house. Schneckenhaus and Nachtskneck are two of my favorite words. My dad let me watch him work on things in the garage when I was little. He thought it was hilarious that I called sparks fire crumbs. Get up outta here with my eye holes. I can't remember who said it, but ever since I heard a person call a cupcake a party muffin, they are permanently renamed in my mind. We were planning to go watch fireworks while the sun was going down, but I couldn't for the life of me think what the word was, so I ended up going with Last Call for the Sun, as me and my friends have all worked in clubs and bars. Still can't live that down. Gosh, that sounds like a great band name. My wife once referred to her portrait as Frank Funian because she couldn't remember the name Paul Bunyan. Frank Funian is now forever immortalized in our household in a painting. Frank Funian, for whom the famous snack is named. Good ol' Frank. I work with a Spaniard who was not familiar with some or local fauna. Okay if you're in the city, bad if you are living at a children's camp. Someone dropped a toad down his back. Once he extracted himself from the visitor, he asked, "What do you call this thing? This jumping pile of crap?" A volunteer at the park where I work can never remember anyone's name. I'm talking people he's worked with for years. It's just not his strong suit. The first time I heard him refer to the park manager as Jinglenuts over there, I spit my coffee right out. He refers to anyone whose name he can't remember, young, old, male, female, as Jinglenuts or what's his frick. Couple weeks ago I was getting a pack of darts, needed some change for parking meters. As the girl is getting my change out, I was panicked. What is it called? My mind blank. All I could get out of my dumb maw was, can I have my change in metal money? In my 30s and the word coin apparently got replaced by some dumb crap I'll likely read here. No folding money for me, sir. I'll have it in jinglies. Thank you. I have a brain condition, and one of my worst symptoms is brain fog. I have a terrible time remembering names for things. This thread is like a gold mine for me, like you people are speaking my language. OMG, I do too, and it is the worst. My mom has a master's in linguistics too, so she has a great time with it. She sometimes calls me her longitudinal case study. I'm bilingual, so sometimes I replace words I don't know with Spanish. But one time I called the car horn the honk. My first car didn't have a working honk. I've got a little cousin who's quietly a genius at this. When she was 3 and just learning the names of different body parts, she got a cut on her ankle playing outside and was trying to tell me, only she couldn't remember the name for ankle, so it became her foot wrist. The exact reverse happened a few weeks later, when she couldn't remember the name for her elbow, so she called it her arm's knee. By far my favorite example, though, is when she couldn't remember the word remember. She told me a knock knock joke, and then when I asked her where she got it, she stared at me blankly for a second and said, I found it in my head. You made it up? I asked her. No, I heard it somewhere, and put it in my head, and then I went in there and found it again. It's absolutely fantastic. She's 6 now, and as she learns more words it's starting to happen less and less, but every once in a while she'll whip out a gem. She's probably created more running jokes in our family in her 6 years than I have in my 2 decades. That is an incredibly perceptive explanation of memory. Once when my husband was on pain meds, after having surgery, he asked for a cylindrical water storage device. Cup. He wanted a cup. My dad accidentally called Chipotle Chipotle once. He got very angry when my brother and I wouldn't stop laughing at him. My mum, who speaks English and couple of Chinese dialects equally well, has these. Animal touch farm equals petting zoo. Car immobilizer stick equals steering lock. Honestly, given what I know of Mandarin, Chinese, this makes perfect sense, and I'm not even at the speaking level of a 2-year-old. I was playing Pictionary with some friends, and the prompt was skunk, so I did my best to draw skunk. My friend yelled stinky cat. The correct answer is fart squirrel. My boyfriend does this all the time. My favorite ever was oil boiled for deep fried, but others have included letterhouse, envelope, potato claws, kitchen tongs, and bread cooker, toaster. I forgot what the letter G was called the other day, so I referred to it as the round K. No, I don't know where I was going with that either. I've had a mild stroke, so sometimes it's hard to think of the right word. My favorite one is water rope for garden hose. My boyfriend came across a wand on my desk the first time he visited my house. He kinda looked at it, held it up, and goes, "Did you make this wizarding stick?" My mom, who was also present, still hadn't let him live it down 3 years later. That's actually another translation that would be directly from German. Zauberstab literally translates to wizarding or spell stick. I couldn't remember my wife's sister's name or spit out the word sister, so I just referred to her as that girl you're related to that's younger than you. For the life of me, I couldn't remember Speedy Gonzales' first name once. I was describing him to my husband, and I knew his last name was Gonzales, but I was all, he's that cartoon mouse, and he's really fast, quick, zippy. I think I came up with 5 different synonyms before remembering Speedy. Growing up, we had a piece of furniture that we didn't know what to call. Was it a bureau? A dresser? We agreed to call it Uncle Fred. We forget that's weird until we have company. My girlfriend worked at the Goodwill and someone had donated a trumpet. but none of her co-workers knew what it was called and she told them it was a trumpet. But for some reason they didn't believe her. Despite her best efforts, they eventually labeled it brass thing and sold it that way. That's the kind of stupidity I have to draw a line at. Yesterday, I forgot what the shade is, and it was really hot outside, so I told my friend let's chill at the dark place. I've been there for a while now. I can't remember the word lid half the time, so during work I sometimes run to the back in search of drink hats. I get weird looks a lot. During chemistry, a friend of mine asked me to pass him the temperature rod. He wasn't trying to crack a joke, so we all stared at him confusingly. Turns out, he was referring to the thermometer. What is it Jewish people wear on their heads? Oh, yeah, Milhouse. Bob at work last week. He also streams Netflix for movies and TV shows. Bob just turned 60. Blew my mind when I discovered that what I previously believed was called a yarmulke is actually spelled yarmulke. My dad once called something that hand jobby thing. I laughed uncontrollably. I was like 10 or 12. And my mom's response was something along the lines of "You're not supposed to even know what that means." Your mom may have underestimated the mind of a 12-year-old. One time when we were on a several-hour bus trip for a math competition, we were passing the time by playing cards, except one of our friends doesn't play cards much and had trouble remembering the suit names. As a result, we all had a great time making fun of him for the rest of the trip about the 8 of triangle squares. Funnily enough, at the competition there was actually a problem where a diamond was part of a problem, so we refused to call it any other name during the round. My mother needed to clean a tile floor. She wondered if there was some contraption, like a pole with bristle sticks on the end. We showed her a broom. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.